"Don't serve that old woman, she's just the cleaner." The words cut through the polished air of the resort lobby like a blade. Serena's voice was sharp, loud enough to silence the soft music and turn every head. My son Oliver laughed, not with embarrassment, but with the ease of someone enjoying a cruel joke. My chest tightened as strangers turned to look at me. Phones came up. Guests whispered. I stood there, suitcase in hand, heat crawling up my neck, feeling like the floor had opened beneath me. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to see how far it travels, because what happened to me might sound unbelievable, but it happened right there in front of 100 witnesses. I'm Eleanor Whitford, 70 years old, and I had been looking forward to this trip for months. My son invited me, or so I thought, to spend time with him and his family at Azure Haven Resort. It was supposed to be a chance to reconnect, to sit by the ocean with my grandchildren, to feel like I belonged. Instead, within minutes of stepping through those glass doors, my daughter-in-law reduced me to nothing more than baggage. The lobby glowed with marble floors and chandeliers. Valets rushed to grab keys. Tourists in linen strolled past with cocktails. And in the center of it all, Serena jabbed her manicured finger at me as if I were a stain. "Ignore her. She doesn't matter. Just give us the penthouse suite." Diego, the young man behind the desk, froze. His eyes flicked to mine for the briefest second, recognition flashing there. I gave him the smallest shake of my head. Not yet. The staff knew me. They all did. But Serena didn't. Oliver didn't. And that was the cruelest cut of all. Oliver leaned against the counter, grinning. "Come on, honey. Don't waste your breath. She'll just slow things down." He chuckled like it was the funniest thing he'd ever said. My stomach turned. This was the boy I raised alone after his father died. The boy I once carried on my hip while working 2 jobs. And now he laughed at me, siding with the woman who spat on my dignity. The conversations around us slowed to murmurs. I could feel the burn of strangers' eyes. Some lifted their phones, hungry for a scene. My cheeks flamed, but I kept my back straight. 70 years on this earth had taught me one thing. Silence can be heavier than words. Still, the sting ran deep. "She's just the help," Serena barked again, her voice echoing off marble and glass. A couple across the lobby gasped. Diego cleared his throat, his professional smile trembling. He was torn, and I knew it. If he defended me, he would expose everything. If he stayed quiet, he was complicit in my humiliation. I clutched the handle of my small suitcase and stepped aside. Each stride toward the elevator felt like dragging lead. I refused to let them see me cry. Not here, not now. My heart pounded against my ribs. Betrayal, sharper than Serena's words, came from Oliver's laughter. That sound would replay in my mind for nights to come. As the elevator doors slid closed, I caught Diego's eyes one last time. He gave me the faintest nod, a silent message. He knew who I was, and he was waiting for my signal. For a moment, my shame clashed with something else, something buried but alive: resolve. What Serena and Oliver didn't know was that Azure Haven was not just another luxury resort. It was mine. Every stone, every chandelier, every glass of champagne poured in that lobby existed because of me. But in that moment, to them, I was nothing but an old woman to be discarded. And that is how my story begins, with humiliation in front of strangers, with the laughter of my only son ringing in my ears, and with the spark of something I had nearly forgotten still burning inside me. The elevator carried me upward, each floor passing like a beat of a drum. I stood tall, but inside I was shaking. The sting of Serena's words clung to me, and Oliver's laughter cut deeper than anything I had endured in years. When the doors opened to my suite, I set down my suitcase and sat on the edge of the bed. The ocean view stretched wide outside the balcony doors, but it did nothing to ease the weight pressing on my chest. I closed my eyes, and without warning, memories pulled me backward. I was 30 years old again, standing in front of a crumbling motel on a forgotten stretch of highway. My husband had been gone for 6 months, cancer taking him swiftly, leaving me with a 12-year-old boy and debts that made my hands tremble when I looked at the bills. That little motel was all I could afford, and even that came with a loan I wasn't sure I could pay. The early days were brutal. I scrubbed every floor myself, made every bed, and answered every call while Oliver did his homework in the back office. I cooked breakfast for guests at dawn, washed sheets in the middle of the night, and fell asleep at the desk when exhaustion won. I worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, for years. There was no time for anything else. The motel grew, slowly, painfully, but it grew. From that one broken building, I built something stronger. I learned how to negotiate with contractors, how to read every line of a loan document, how to keep books so precise that no bank could question me. I learned to trust no one with my finances, not even family, because I had no safety net. The only way forward was through sheer determination. By the time Oliver turned 18, the motel had become a small inn with a reputation that spread by word of mouth. I remember the pride I felt when a travel magazine listed us as a hidden gem along the Florida coast. That was the beginning of everything. Year after year, I bought one more property, then another. Sometimes I failed. Sometimes the renovations cost twice as much as planned. But I kept going. By the time I turned 60, I owned 12 resorts across Florida, each one built on sweat and sacrifice. I never remarried, never took a vacation longer than a week, never stopped moving. My entire life became a wall of determination to give Oliver a future his father would have been proud of. That was why today's betrayal burned so much. All those years I thought I was building something for him. I thought he would grow to respect what it took, that he would see me not only as his mother, but as the woman who carved a life out of nothing. Instead, he let his wife spit on me in public. Instead, he laughed, as if my humiliation was a joke. I rose from the bed and stepped onto the balcony. The salt air brushed against my skin. Waves rolled steadily onto the shore, indifferent to my turmoil. For a moment, I envied their calm rhythm. People saw a resort with polished marble and crystal chandeliers, but I saw the decades of sacrifice hidden beneath the shine. Every brick was a piece of my past, every tile a reminder of hours worked without rest. I realized then why I had kept my ownership quiet. I wanted Oliver to love me for me, not for what I owned. I wanted him to know his mother's value without attaching it to dollar signs or property deeds. I thought hiding the truth would protect our bond. Instead, it gave Serena the chance to twist it into something ugly. I gripped the balcony railing and felt a strange clarity. I could not undo the past, and I could not erase Serena's cruelty, but I could remember who I was. I was not the woman she described. I was not the servant she mocked. I was the builder of this empire, the keeper of its keys. Inside, the room glowed with the warm light of sunset. I shut the curtains, turned off the lamp, and lay down. Sleep did not come easy, but when it did, it was heavy and dreamless. My body rested, but my mind was already preparing for what might come next. The next morning began with the clatter of plates in the dining hall and the murmur of guests drifting in for breakfast. I joined my son and his family at a table by the window, the best seat in the room, though I noticed quickly that the chair left for me faced the wall. Serena sat straight-backed, her sunglasses perched on her head though we were indoors, tapping her nails against the table while ordering the waiter around as if she owned the place. I said fresh juice, not bottled, she snapped, waving her hand. And the eggs had better be perfect this time. Oliver scrolled his phone, uninterested, nodding at her commands as if they were his own. My grandchildren, Maya and Ethan, barely looked up from their tablets. Their small faces glowed blue in the light of the screens, detached from everything around them. I leaned closer, hoping for something simple. "Good morning, sweetheart," I whispered to Maya, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. She jerked back, and before she could say anything, Serena's hand shot out. "Don't touch her hair," she said, not even looking at me. "It cost good money yesterday, and I don't want it ruined." I pulled my hand back, the sting sharper than it should have been. Oliver didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and chose not to care. Breakfast continued with Serena directing everything. She decided what the children would eat, what they should drink, and then, as if it were the most natural thing, she turned to me. "After we finish here, you'll take them to the pool," she said. "Make sure they have sunscreen every hour, and keep them away from the deep end. I don't want any accidents." I looked at her, then at Oliver. He didn't meet my eyes. "We'll be at the spa for most of the day," he added, still scrolling. "Maybe dinner too. You don't mind, do you?" The words were not a question. They were instructions, and I nodded, though my throat felt tight. At the pool, families filled the lounge chairs. Children splashed in the shallow end, laughter ringing in the air. I guided Maya and Ethan to a couple of seats and tried again. "Would you like to build a sandcastle later?" I asked gently. Maya didn't look up. "Mom says you used to clean rooms here," she said, her voice flat. "Is that true?" The question stopped me cold. "No, sweetheart," I said carefully. "I've never done that. I helped build this place." Ethan glanced up then, his eyes narrowing. "Mom says you make up stories because you're embarrassed you're poor. She says, Dad takes care of you now." My breath caught. For a second I couldn't find words. "That's not true," I managed finally. "I've worked hard my whole life. I'm not poor, and I don't make up stories." They shrugged almost in unison and bent back to their screens. The conversation already forgotten. I sat back, feeling the heat of the sun on my skin and a chill deep inside. It wasn't enough for Serena to humiliate me in public. She was poisoning my grandchildren, turning them against me before they even had the chance to know me. Hours passed in silence, broken only by splashes and the hum of chatter from other families. I watched strangers laugh together, children racing in and out of the water, grandparents embraced by small arms. Around me, the emptiness grew heavier. By the time Oliver and Serena returned, their skin glowed from the spa treatments, their arms full of shopping bags. Serena's nails gleamed a new shade of pink. She glanced at me only long enough to ask, "They behave?" "They were fine," I said. "It was all I could manage." "Good," she replied, already looking away. "You'll do the same tomorrow. We have a day trip planned." That night, in the quiet of my suite, I stared out at the ocean. The waves moved steady as ever, but nothing inside me was steady anymore. The insult in the lobby had been one wound. Hearing my grandchildren repeat lies about me was another. The pattern was clear. Serena was not only determined to erase me, she wanted to rewrite me into something I had never been. And Oliver? He let her. The following day began with the same routine, but something in the air felt heavier. I met Oliver and Serena in the lobby before breakfast. Serena's expression was sharp, like she had already decided how the day would go. She handed me a stack of folded papers, her nails tapping against the top page. "Sign this," she said. I looked down and saw a document that didn't look like any hotel form I had ever signed. The words blurred at first, but then my eyes caught on to phrases that sent a chill through me. Power of attorney. Authorization of transfer. I glanced up. "What is this?" Oliver stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "It's just so we can take care of things for you, Mom. Room reservations, banking, medical needs. You don't need the stress." I held the paper tighter. "I don't need you to take care of my accounts. I can handle my own business." Serena leaned in, her perfume cloying. "You're 70 years old. Don't you think it's time to let go? You'll just get confused. This is easier for everyone." Her words were sweet on the surface, but her tone was cold, like steel. I scanned the rest of the document quickly, my heart pounding. It wasn't just about managing hotel bills, it was about everything. My properties, my investments, my decisions. With a single signature, I would be handing them control of my entire life. I set the papers back on the table between us. "No." Oliver's jaw tightened. "Mom, don't be difficult. This is just a formality." "It's not a formality," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's my life, and I won't sign it." Serena gave a quick laugh, though there was no humor in it. "You're being dramatic. No one is trying to take your life. We're just trying to help. But if you'd rather keep struggling, that's on you." Her eyes flicked to Oliver, and for a moment, I saw something pass between them. Agreement, strategy. I realized then that this wasn't just Serena's idea. My son was part of it too. I pushed the papers back across the table. I said, "No, don't ask me again." Oliver's voice dropped, low and sharp. "You're making a mistake." I looked straight at him. The mistake was thinking I wouldn't notice what you're doing. The tension was thick enough to choke on. For a moment, none of us moved. Then Serena snatched the papers, folding them back into her designer bag with a snap. She plastered on a smile for the benefit of anyone watching nearby. "Fine, have it your way. But don't say we didn't try." We went to breakfast in silence. Serena ordered for everyone again, her voice too loud, her tone too sharp. Oliver stayed buried in his phone, pretending not to notice the storm that had just passed. My grandchildren sat quietly, unaware of what had nearly happened. I ate little, my appetite gone. Every bite felt heavy. My hands trembled slightly as I held the coffee cup, though I kept it steady enough not to show. The betrayal in Oliver's eyes lingered in my mind. It wasn't just Serena pressing me, it was him too. The boy I had raised had turned into a man who wanted my signature more than my respect. After breakfast, they went off on another spa appointment, leaving me once again with the children. I nodded, I smiled, I agreed to their plans, but inside my thoughts churned. This wasn't just about being treated like the help, this was a plan to take what I had built, piece by piece, until nothing was left in my name. And I knew then that humiliation in the lobby was only the beginning. That afternoon, I walked through the resort alone, trying to collect my thoughts. The children had been dropped off at the kids' club, and Oliver and Serena were nowhere to be seen. I found myself drifting back toward the lobby, the very place where the first wound had been carved. The marble floor gleamed, the chandeliers sparkled, and behind the front desk stood Diego. He looked up as I approached, his face softening in recognition. "Mrs. Whitford," he said quietly, leaning forward. "Do you have a moment?" I hesitated, then nodded. He stepped out from behind the counter and guided me to a small seating area tucked into the corner of the lobby. The hum of guests moving around us gave just enough cover for a private conversation. "I want to apologize for what happened the other day," he said, his voice low. "I had to keep my position neutral in front of them, but I knew who you were the moment you walked in. All of us did. We were waiting for your signal." His words settled over me like a strange mixture of comfort and sorrow. "You knew?" I asked softly. He nodded. "Every manager here knows your face. You built this place. We work for you." It was hard to stand there and pretend I didn't. I let out a slow breath. "You did the right thing." I wasn't ready to show them the truth. Diego looked uneasy. "Ma'am, I need to tell you something else. Your son and his wife have been asking questions. Not the kind guests usually ask. They've been speaking with a lawyer who showed up yesterday. They think no one noticed, but I did." I felt the weight of his words. "What kind of lawyer?" "I don't know the details, but I heard them discussing property and ownership," he said. "Serena mentioned transferring titles. I can't be sure, but it sounded serious." My fingers tightened around the armrest of the chair. It was worse than I thought. They weren't only humiliating me in public or trying to trick me with papers. They were laying the groundwork for something larger. "Thank you," I told him firmly. "You didn't have to share that with me. Action of the Sprigber, and find is in the Medici and Remender. I couldn't stand by and watch it happen," he replied. "You should be careful, they're determined." I rose slowly, every step deliberate. "I'll be careful. And Diego, keep this between us for now." He gave me a respectful nod. "Of course, Mrs. Whitford. We're on your side when you need us." I left the lobby with my mind spinning. My son, the boy I had once carried through storms, the boy who clung to my hand in the dark, was now preparing to strip me of everything I had fought for. And his wife was leading the charge with all the arrogance of someone who had never worked a day in her life. Later, at dinner, I watched them carefully. Serena dominated the conversation as usual, bragging about spa treatments and her shopping finds, while Oliver sat content to let her speak for both of them. My grandchildren ate quietly, barely looking at me. To anyone else, it might have looked like an ordinary family vacation. To me, it was a performance staged to cover the real plan simmering beneath the surface. "Tomorrow we're visiting the vineyard outside the city," Serena announced, her fork tapping lightly against her plate. "You'll stay with the kids again. It will be easier for everyone." I looked at Oliver, hoping for some hint of recognition, some sign of hesitation. None came. He gave a short nod, eyes still on his phone. I wanted to confront them then, to ask why they thought I couldn't see what they were doing, but I held my tongue. I had learned long ago that silence could be more powerful than words. Instead, I watched, I listened, and I waited. Back in my suite, the ocean stretched dark and endless beyond the glass doors. I sat at the desk with a notepad, my pen scratching across the page as I listed everything I needed to prepare. Documents, financial records, proof of ownership. I would gather it all. If they thought I was weak, they were about to learn otherwise. Still, a sharp ache pierced me. It wasn't just about protecting property or money. It was about my son. The boy I had poured my life into was now working with his wife to erase me, to recast me as a burden, a helpless old woman. I stared at the paper in front of me, the ink heavy on the page. For years I had told myself I kept my identity hidden, so Oliver would love me without the weight of wealth between us. Now, I saw how wrong I had been. My silence had given Serena space to rewrite my story and had given Oliver permission to believe her. I pushed the notepad aside and closed my eyes. My pulse was steady, my breath even. For the first time in days, I felt a clear sense of direction. This battle was no longer about dignity alone. It was about survival of everything I had built, everything I had sacrificed for. Tomorrow would come, and with it, another test. But I was ready. The morning sun spilled across the balcony when I opened my eyes, but the calm beauty of the ocean could not soften the weight in my chest. I knew Serena and Oliver had a day trip planned. They left their children with me again, their voices brisk and hurried as they reminded me of rules and instructions. I nodded without answering, already tired of being treated like an unpaid caretaker. By mid-morning, the children were at the kids' club, and I finally had a few hours to myself. I walked the grounds slowly, watching guests laugh as they carried cocktails to the pool, admiring how the staff moved with polished precision. Every corner of the resort held a piece of my history, but I felt like a stranger walking through it. My feet carried me farther, past the manicured hedges, until the sound of hushed voices caught my ear. It came from one of the private cabanas tucked near the pool bar. The curtains were drawn, but the voices were familiar. I edged closer, keeping behind a row of palms, and listened. "She's getting older," Serena's voice said, dripping with irritation. "We can't keep waiting forever. The moment she slips up, we take control." A man's laugh followed, one I didn't recognize. "Is she really worth the trouble?" Oliver's voice cut in, calm but cruel. "She has more than she admits. Properties, investments, she never tells anyone, but I know. Once we have power of attorney, it all becomes ours. It's only a matter of time." My breath caught, and I gripped the palm trunk to steady myself. They weren't just planning, they were already setting the stage. "Besides," Serena added, "she's pathetic. She's grateful for scraps of attention. She'll never fight back. She doesn't have it in her anymore." The stranger chuckled again. "So what's the plan? Nursing home? Sell everything off?" Oliver's reply made my stomach turn. "As soon as she shows any weakness, yes. We'll put her somewhere cheap, say she can't manage herself. Nobody will question it. And by then, her signature will already be on the papers." There was a pause. Then Serena spoke with a sharp laugh. "Can you believe she actually told the kids she built hotels? They laughed about it all night. She thinks she's still important, but really she's just an old woman clinging to stories." The man asked, "And the kids believe you?" "Of course," Serena said proudly. "I've told them enough times that she lies. They already think she's confused. When the time comes, even they won't trust her." Their laughter rolled out of the cabana, sharp and cruel. My hands trembled as I pressed them to my mouth to keep quiet. It was worse than I imagined. Serena was poisoning my grandchildren against me, while planning to steal everything I had built. And Oliver, my own son, was not only allowing it, but leading the way. I stepped back slowly, heart pounding. I couldn't listen anymore. The sound of their voices, the way they spoke of me as though I were already gone, was almost unbearable. I made my way toward the path by the gardens, each step unsteady, the heat of betrayal burning through me. Back in my suite, I sat down heavily in the chair by the window. The ocean stretched out wide and endless, but I felt trapped. I had always told myself I was protecting Oliver by keeping my success quiet. I thought if he didn't know the details, he would value me as his mother, not as a source of money. Instead, my silence had armed Serena with lies and given Oliver room to despise me. I pulled open the desk drawer and took out the notepad I had started the night before. My pen shook, but I began to write, listing each property, each account, each proof of ownership. I would gather every record, every receipt of money I had given Oliver, every document that could stand in a courtroom if it came to that. The sting of their laughter still echoed in my ears. They thought I was finished. They thought I was too weak to stand in their way. I set the pen down and stared out at the waves. My pulse slowed, my resolve sharpening with every breath. If they wanted a fight, I would give them one, but it would not be the kind they expected. The following days unfolded like a storm that refused to pass. Serena's tone sharpened with every interaction, and Oliver's silence grew heavier. They no longer tried to disguise their intentions behind politeness. Instead, they pressed harder, tightening their hold in small ways that felt deliberate. At breakfast, Serena leaned across the table, her voice just loud enough for other guests to hear. "She's forgetting things again, Oliver. Did you notice? She didn't remember what day we checked in." Oliver nodded without looking at me. "It's been happening more often. Maybe it's time we start thinking about options." I set my coffee cup down carefully, not allowing my hands to shake. I remembered every detail, every time, but they were painting a picture for anyone listening. The lie was spreading, brick by brick. Later, while we walked through the garden with the children, Maya looked up at me with wide eyes. "Mom says when people get old, their minds start breaking. Is that what's happening to you?" I forced a smile for her sake, but the question cut deep. "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "I'm fine. Don't believe everything you hear." Ethan frowned, studying me as though searching for cracks. "But Dad says you might not be able to take care of yourself soon. He says they'll have to help you." I looked at his young face, so trusting of the words fed to him. "I can take care of myself," I answered firmly. "I always have." That evening, Serena brought another set of papers to the suite. She placed them neatly on the table, her nails clicking against the folder. "These are medical directives," she said sweetly, "just in case. You know, things like who should make decisions for you if something happens." Oliver stood behind her, arms crossed, his eyes avoiding mine. "I don't need that," I said flatly. Serena tilted her head, her smile never reaching her eyes. "It's responsible to plan ahead. Don't you care about making things easier for your son?" The words were a blade. I looked at Oliver, waiting for him to speak up, to tell her she had gone too far. He didn't. I pushed the papers back across the table. "No." Her smile dropped for just a second, and I saw the fury flicker beneath. Then she gathered the folder and snapped it shut. "Suit yourself," she said coldly. The next day, I overheard her speaking near the pool, her voice carrying over the water. "It's sad, really. She used to be sharp, but now she can't even keep track of simple things. The staff will back us up when the time comes. They've all noticed." I watched guests glance in my direction, pity in their eyes. She was laying the foundation of her lie in public, making it appear true before I even had a chance to defend myself. That night, Oliver came to my suite alone. He sat down heavily, rubbing his face. "Mom, you're making this harder than it has to be. Serena's just trying to help. If you would sign the documents, all this tension would go away." I stared at him, my own son, the boy I had once carried through sleepless nights. "Help me?" I asked. "By taking everything I built? By telling the world I've lost my mind?" He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "You don't understand. It's easier this way. People expect us to take over. You can't manage this forever." "I have managed it for decades," I said, my voice steady. "And I don't need you rewriting my story to make it convenient for you." For a moment, his eyes softened, a trace of guilt breaking through. Then it was gone, replaced by the same blank mask I had seen for days. He stood up without another word and left the room. I sat in the silence, the ocean outside whispering through the balcony doors. They were tightening the noose, weaving their lies into every corner of the resort, into the ears of my grandchildren, into the perception of strangers. I could feel the pressure building, but I would not yield. What Serena and Oliver did not understand was that every attack only sharpened my resolve. They thought they were pushing me into a corner. In reality, they were giving me the time I needed to prepare. That night, after Oliver walked out of my suite, I sat in the silence for a long time. The room glowed faintly with the reflection of the pool lights outside, and the steady crash of the waves was the only sound that soothed me. My heart ached from what I had heard in the cabana, from the lies Serena planted in my grandchildren's minds, from the weight of Oliver's cold words. But beneath the ache was something else, a slow, steady burn. I had been patient. I had kept my silence, thinking it was the kindest path. Now I saw the truth. My silence had only given them room to twist my story into something I no longer recognized. The next morning, while they busied themselves with another day trip, I began my work. I opened the drawer of the desk and spread my notes across the wood. Names of properties, account numbers, years of tax returns. I thought of each hotel, each resort, and the hours I had put into them. I remembered nights spent in half-finished buildings, my hands blistered from scrubbing floors after contractors left. I remembered opening day at my first real resort, standing proudly as guests streamed through the doors. These memories were my strength, and they would now serve as my weapon. I called my attorney in Miami, a man who had been with me for 20 years. His voice carried the steady calm I needed. I explained what was happening, careful and precise, giving no detail away that could be twisted. He listened, then said firmly, "Gather every document, every receipt, every proof of ownership. Leave nothing to chance. We'll build a wall so strong that no accusation can break it." After the call, I went to the small safe built into the suite. With a steady hand, I pulled out a thick envelope. Inside were copies of deeds, contracts, and records of transfers. I flipped through them slowly, the numbers and signatures a reminder of what was mine, property after property. Azure Haven Resorts, valued at $95 million in total. A chain I had built from the ground up. But it wasn't only the resorts. I also had proof of the years I had supported Oliver. Bank transfers showing deposits of $20,000 each month for more than 15 years. Checks written to cover his business ventures that failed before they even began. Records of tuition for the children's private schools. More than $8 million in support, all documented. I had given and given, never once asking for anything in return. And now he stood with a woman who mocked me as if I were nothing. I stacked the papers neatly, securing them in folders. Then I made duplicates, sliding copies into a second envelope I would send to my lawyer by courier. My hands moved with purpose, my breath steady. If Serena thought she could erase me, she was about to learn that I was far more prepared than she ever imagined. That afternoon, I walked through the lobby, my head high. I caught Diego's eye behind the desk. He gave me a small nod, one that told me he understood. I didn't need to speak. Not yet. Timing was everything. When I passed by the pool, I saw Serena stretched across a lounge chair, sunglasses perched on her nose, her voice carrying as she spoke to another guest. "It's only a matter of time," she said, laughing lightly. "She can't handle things anymore. We're stepping in soon." The guest nodded sympathetically, glancing briefly in my direction. I didn't stop walking. I let her words slide past me, though each one etched deeper into my resolve. Back in my suite, I locked the folders away again and stood before the balcony doors. The ocean rolled endlessly, steady and patient. I realized that patience was my ally. They thought they were breaking me down, but all they were doing was giving me space to prepare. I would let them think they were winning. I would let them believe I was beaten. And then, when the time came, I would reveal everything. The sun sank slowly toward the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of red and gold. I stood there until the last light faded, the quiet of the evening wrapping around me. For the first time in days, I did not feel crushed by their schemes. I felt ready. The battle had already begun, though they didn't know it yet, and I would not lose. The night of the wine reception arrived, and the resort glowed brighter than ever. Strings of lights lined the terrace, glasses clinked, and the sound of a small jazz trio floated over the air. Guests moved about in glittering clothes, laughter spilling across the marble floors. I stood at the edge of the room, my dress simple but dignified, my papers locked safely in the suite upstairs. Tonight was not about documents. Tonight was about timing. Oliver and Serena entered the room like they owned it. Serena wore a red dress that caught every eye, and Oliver walked beside her, tall and silent, his hand resting on her back as if he were supporting her, though I knew the truth was the opposite. They made their way to the center of the room, greeting guests, smiling too wide, their confidence radiating like heat. When Serena finally saw me, her lips curled into a cruel smile. She raised her glass, tapping it loudly with a spoon until the chatter quieted. "Everyone," she called out, her voice bright and sharp, "we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. Azure Haven has always been a place of elegance, a place where families come together, and it means so much to share this evening with you." Applause rippled through the crowd. She held the moment, savoring it, then turned her gaze toward me. "Of course, some people here still believe they're part of this world," she said, laughter lacing her words. "But let's be honest, not everyone belongs at a table like this. Some people are only here because of pity or because they cling to the past." A few heads turned toward me, whispers running through the guests. Serena's smile widened as she took a step closer. "Take her, for example," she said, pointing directly at me. "She's not a guest of honor. She's the help. Just a cleaner who doesn't know when her time has passed." The room went silent. The sting of her words hung in the air, sharper than the clink of any glass. For a moment, all I heard was the rush of my own blood in my ears. I looked at Oliver, waiting for him to stop her, to say something, anything. He didn't. His eyes stayed down, fixed on the floor. Serena tilted her head, mock pity on her face. "Isn't that right? You should sit quietly and be grateful you're allowed here at all." And licking that sage, I took a slow breath and straightened my shoulders. My time of silence was over. I turned toward the staff near the entrance and caught Diego's eye. He gave a small nod, stepping forward with a microphone in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice steady as it carried across the room. "There's something you should know. My name is Eleanor Whitford. I am not a guest here, and I am not the help. I am the founder and sole owner of Azure Haven Resorts. Setter Profitable Mange." The words fell like a stone into still water. Gasps echoed through the room. People looked from me to Serena, their eyes wide, their whispers rising. Serena froze, her smile cracking. Oliver's head snapped up, his face pale. I continued, my voice gaining strength. "For 40 years I have built this chain with my own hands. I scrubbed floors, carried trays, and negotiated every contract. From one small inn to 12 resorts, every wall you see here exists because of me. And for 15 years, I have supported my son and his family with $20,000 a month on top of the millions I invested in their lives. I have done this quietly, never asking for recognition." Diego stepped closer, handing me a folder. I opened it and pulled out copies of deeds and transfers, holding them up for the guests to see. "These are the deeds to the properties you've admired, every signature proof of what I built. These are bank transfers, proof of the money I gave freely. I kept these records not for myself, but for moments like this, when the truth must stand against lies." Murmurs swept through the room, heads shaking, eyes narrowing at Serena and Oliver. Serena's face burned red, her mouth opening and closing as if she could not find words. I turned to her directly. "You tried to erase me, to paint me as weak, to poison my grandchildren against me. You told strangers I was confused, that I was finished. But the truth is simple. You are the ones clinging to what isn't yours." The silence that followed was heavier than any applause. Guests stared, some raising phones, recording every word. The performance Serena had staged was unraveling, and she could not stop it. Oliver finally spoke, his voice weak. "Mom, you didn't have to do this." I looked at him, my heart breaking but my voice unshaken. "Yes, I did, because you let her speak for you. You let her turn you against me. Tonight the lies end." The crowd erupted in murmurs, some clapping softly, others shaking their heads at Serena and Oliver. The trio playing music stopped altogether, the night suspended in a moment of revelation. I stood taller, my eyes sweeping the room. "I am not a cleaner. I am not a burden. I am the owner of this empire, and I will never hand it over to those who treat me as less than what I am." In Iconist Dieu, the last note of my words hung in the air, unshaken. And for the first time in days, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The truth had been spoken. The room was still humming after my words settled, the guests caught between shock and disbelief. Some clapped, some whispered, and many stared at Serena and Oliver as if they were strangers revealed under a harsh light. Serena's face was rigid, her red dress no longer a statement of power but a spotlight on her humiliation. Oliver stood stiff beside her, pale and speechless, his eyes darting toward the exits as though he wished he could escape the weight of the truth. I did not move from where I stood. I let the silence stretch until every gaze returned to me. Then I spoke again, my voice calm, measured, each word deliberate. "For 15 years, I provided for this family. $20,000 every month, money that paid for homes, cars, schools, and failed businesses. I gave because I loved my son. I gave because I believed we were family. But love is not meant to be twisted into entitlement. Family is not meant to strip you bare while mocking you in public." I lifted another page from the folder, holding it where the light caught the numbers. "Here are the transfers, year after year, more than $8 million in total. and yet I was repaid with laughter, with insults, with schemes to erase me. Gasps rippled across the crowd. Several guests turned fully toward Serena now, their faces sharp with judgment. She opened her mouth to protest, but her voice cracked before it could form words. I set the papers back in Diego's hands and turned my gaze directly on her. From this moment forward, there will be no more support. No more checks, no more transfers, no more pretending that you carry yourselves on anything but my generosity. If you wish to live as though you own the world, you will pay for it yourselves. I have delight with a prophet. Her lips tightened, the mask of confidence shattering. She looked at Oliver, waiting for him to defend her, but he stayed silent. The weight of the evidence had pinned him down, and he knew there was no escape. I continued, my voice steady. This resort, every account and deed remains in my name. You may have whispered lies about me to strangers, but tonight the truth is written in black and white for all to see. You cannot take what you did not build. Sense of the text 9. The murmurs grew louder, some guests nodding, some whispering angrily about the cruelty they had just witnessed. A few even clapped again, their applause sharp and deliberate. Serena's face flushed deeper, and Oliver lowered his head. I stepped closer, my eyes on my son. You were given everything, not just money, a life of comfort, of education, of choices. And when the time came to stand beside your mother, you chose to let her speak for you. You chose her lies over my truth. That choice has consequences. He flinched, his mouth opening, but no words came. I turned back to the guests, the witnesses who had seen both my humiliation and my defense. Tonight was meant to be a celebration of what we built together. Instead, it revealed what greed can do when left unchecked. Let it be known that Azure Haven will remain what it has always been, a place built on hard work, honesty, and respect. And those who cannot uphold that will have no place in it. 7. With that, I handed the folder back to Diego and left the center of the room. The music did not resume. Instead, the crowd broke into low voices, the story already spreading like wildfire. I could feel their eyes following Serena and Oliver, no longer admiring, now condemning. Back in my suite, I stood before the mirror. My reflection stared back, older, lined, but strong. I had spoken the truth, cut through their lies, and reclaimed what was mine. The silence of the room felt heavy, but it was not loneliness. It was clarity. A knock sounded at the door. I opened it to find Oliver standing alone, his face pale. He hesitated, then said quietly, "You didn't have to do that in front of everyone." I looked at him, my voice quiet but firm. "Yes, I did, because you let her destroy me in front of everyone, and you said nothing. Tonight was not about pride. It was about survival. And you need to understand something, Oliver. From this point on, I will not be silent again." He looked at me for a long moment, guilt flickering in his eyes, then turned and walked away. I closed the door and leaned against it, my breath steady. The battle had shifted. I had drawn the line, cut off the lifeline that had bound me to their greed. And though the night was heavy with what had been lost, it was also the first step toward freedom. The morning after the reception, the resort carried a different air. Guests moved through the lobby, whispering, their glances sharper than before. The story had spread quickly. Some of them smiled warmly at me, nodding with respect. Others avoided Oliver and Serena altogether, their once polished image stripped away in a single night. I walked through the halls with a sense of calm I had not felt in days. For the first time, I was not hiding. My name, my work, my life, they were no longer secrets twisted into lies. They were truth, and the truth had weight. Later that day, I met with my attorney in a quiet lounge near the back of the property. He laid out fresh papers across the table, each one crisp and final. I signed the documents with a steady hand, transferring $10 million into a scholarship fund for employees and their families. The pen glided easily, and with each stroke, I felt a piece of the burden lift. "You're certain about this?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "This money should build futures, not chains. My son has already had his chance. Now it belongs to people who respect what it took to build all of this." He nodded, gathering the papers. "It's the right decision." When I left the lounge, I walked past the pool where Maya and Ethan were playing. Their laughter floated through the air, innocent and sweet. Serena sat nearby in a chair, her sunglasses hiding her eyes, her posture stiff. I paused a moment, watching my grandchildren splash each other in the shallow end. Maya noticed me first. She waved hesitantly, and for the first time since our arrival, her smile held no mockery, just a small, cautious warmth. Ethan followed her lead, lifting a hand in a quiet greeting. I returned it with a smile, and though the distance between us was still wide, I knew the truth had begun to reach them. Serena shifted in her chair, pulling her sunglasses down to glare at me. "Are you satisfied now?" she hissed. I met her stare without blinking. Satisfied? No. But I'm free. And that matters more than anything you can imagine. Her lips pressed tight, her face pale under the heat of the Sunday. She looked away quickly, adjusting her posture as if the simple act of meeting my gaze was too much to bear. That evening, I hosted a small gathering for the staff. We sat in the courtyard under the glow of lanterns, their faces lit with pride and relief. I thanked them for their loyalty, for their silence when I needed it, and for their strength when the truth finally had to be revealed. Many of them spoke, their words filled with gratitude. For years, they had known who I was, yet they had respected my choice to remain in the background. Now, they said, they were proud to work not just for a resort, but for a woman who had stood her ground. As I listened, I felt the threads of a new beginning weaving themselves together. No longer tied down by secrecy or fear, I could choose freely how to shape the future. The next morning, Oliver knocked on my door. His face was tired, his shoulders heavy, and for a moment, I saw the boy he once was, the boy who had depended on me. He stepped inside quietly, his voice low. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this." I studied him, searching for sincerity in his eyes. "You start by admitting what you allowed. You stood by while she tried to erase me. You let her words replace your own." He swallowed hard, his gaze falling to the floor. "I thought I was protecting my family. I thought if we had control, things would be secure. But I see now, it was never about that. It was about greed." I let her convince me. My chest tightened with both pain and relief. "You let her speak for you. That was your choice. The damage is done." He looked up, his eyes wet. "Is it too late?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I turned toward the balcony where the ocean stretched out endlessly, steady and patient. "It's never too late to change, Oliver, but you will have to earn back trust, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to give as freely as I once did." He nodded, his shoulders sinking. "I understand." Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there a long while, the waves rolling in steady rhythm. For the first time in years, I felt unshackled. The weight of providing for those who only took had been lifted. The future stretched wide, not as a burden, but as a choice. I chose peace, I chose dignity, and I chose to honor my work by giving it back to those who deserved it most. The final days of the trip unfolded with a calm I had not expected. The storm had broken, the truth was out, and there was no going back to silence. Serena moved through the resort with her head lowered, her laughter gone, her voice clipped. Guests no longer leaned toward her with admiration. They looked past her, their eyes carrying judgment she could not escape. Oliver walked beside her quietly, no longer the proud figure he once pretended to be. I spent my time walking the grounds, speaking with staff, and sitting with Maya and Ethan. Slowly, the children began to seek me out on their own. They asked questions, curious about the stories they had once been told were lies. I answered gently, showing them photographs, receipts, small keepsakes that painted the truth in colors no one could deny. Their trust began to return, not in grand gestures, but in small moments. A shared laugh, a hand reaching for mine. On the last evening, I asked Oliver and Serena to meet me on the terrace. The ocean stretched wide before us, the sky painted with shades of gold and violet. They arrived hesitantly, as if unsure whether I would send them away. Serena spoke first, her tone brittle. "What do you want from us now? You've already ruined us in front of everyone." I held her gaze, steady and calm. "I didn't ruin you. You did that yourselves. But I didn't call you here to shame you further. I called you here because this is the end of it." Oliver stepped forward, his voice low. "Mom, I'm sorry. I let it happen. I let her words guide me, and I didn't protect you when I should have. I can't undo it, but I want to try to make it right. He were being apporting the time." Serena turned sharply toward him, but he didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on me, clear with regret. I nodded slowly. You can't erase what has been said or done, but you can choose differently from now on. I won't hand you money. I won't be the foundation of your life anymore. If you want to build something, it must be with your own hands. Serena scoffed. And if we fail? Then you fail, I said firmly. But at least it will be yours. You've spent too long living off what you didn't earn. It's time you learn the weight of building something yourself. The silence that followed was heavy. Serena's face tightened, but she said nothing more. Oliver lowered his head, his shoulders slumping as though the truth had finally settled on him. I stood and looked out at the sea. I forgive you, I said quietly. Not because you deserve it, but because I will not carry your betrayal with me any longer. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means I choose to move forward without your lies holding me down. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Oliver whispered, "Thank you." Serena stayed silent, her pride a wall she could not yet set aside. But I saw something flicker in her eyes, something that hinted at cracks in her certainty. Whether she would change was her choice. Mine had already been made. The next morning, I checked out of the resort. Staff lined the lobby, thanking me warmly, their respect shining in their faces. Diego handed me my final papers with a quiet smile. "It was an honor to serve you, Mrs. Whitford." I left with my head high, my dignity intact, and my future clear. I had drawn the line, spoken the truth, and cut the ties that once bound me. My story was no longer one of silence and humiliation. It was one of justice, forgiveness, and renewal. As the car pulled away, I looked back one last time. Oliver stood in the doorway, watching me. He raised a hand, tentative and uncertain. I lifted mine in return, not in farewell, but in hope that one day he would find his own way forward. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you were in my place, would you have chosen forgiveness, or would you have walked away without looking back? Every family carries its battles, and sometimes the hardest choice is to let go of anger while still holding on to dignity. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear how you would handle betrayal and what forgiveness means to you. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe so you won't miss the next one.